Rick Pizzo back with Jerry DiNardo and Dave Wanstead here on this edition of Big Ten Today. Let's head to the Twin Cities. It's Lincoln Riley's USC team coming to the Twin Cities for the first time to face Minnesota as a Big Ten Conference member. And Dave, this is strength on strength because we know about Lincoln Riley's offensive acumen. We know Miller Moss can throw it. USC's wide receiver room is loaded. But did you know that Minnesota statistically has the top-ranked pass defense in FBS football so far this season?
No, I did not. Thank you, Rick.
You're welcome.
I'll make a point off of that.
You think you would have told us at the meeting before the show? He's keeping that. Yeah.
You can't share all the secrets in the green room.
I just hope those guys that got the #1 pass defense, which I hope they can run as fast, because I think USC has as good a receivers as anybody in the country. I mean, those guys, was it Kobe Lane and company? I mean, these guys make catches that are NFL-style catches. So, yeah, they're going to need that #1 rated pass defense. That would be a good place to start. But you know what? USC, they started so slow. And me having coached there, these kids, it bothered me a little bit. After the game, they're behind at halftime, and they come back and win it. And one of the interview things was, well, they were a lot tougher than we expected. That they still think they got Marcus Allen. I don't know what they're thinking at USC, but there's a perception amongst the team that, which is good. You want your team to think that you're a championship team. That's why you go to some of these places. But to start off like they did, and turn the ball over like they did, I mean, that you're not going to recover from that most weeks. And they fought back, and they did a great job, great halftime adjustments. But that disappointed me. The one thing that I'll close on USC, and I said this against Michigan, that offensive line, they had a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and 2 seniors. They're young, they're inexperienced, and that, to me, is the one issue at USC's team right now that concerns me, week in and week out.
You don't see the chemistry yet.
I don't see it, and I don't see the domination that you'd expect to see from a USC offensive line.
I didn't know that that's what the players said after the game, because one of the things I wanted to discuss today is USC going to Minnesota. I mean, the mindset of the USC players, to me, I'd love to know what it is. I'm guessing it's not overly positive about the history of Minnesota football. What they don't know is that team, Minnesota, plays as hard as any team.
And fundamentally solid.
One thing PJ does, I mean, he does a lot of good things. They play hard. And if they had that attitude about Wisconsin, they better change their attitude going into Minneapolis, because USC is a national brand name, right? Minnesota really isn't in football, and especially from the players that have come from the West Coast. So I think there's a mental hurdle there that if USC thinks they're just going to show up and win, they're going to get out tough, and they could.
Well, this is a game. Let's be honest. It's a game that USC can't afford to lose.
Right.
At this point in the season, with the loss already to Michigan, and I'm not just talking about the playoff inclusion. I'm talking about what it means for the rest of the year. I understand what you're saying, that maybe you don't get as fired up as you do for other games. But that's where it's on the coaching staff to make sure that you're ready to play this game on Saturday night.
And there's also a run game element to this. I mean, they ran for USC ran 93 yards against LSU and 126 against Michigan. And the reason I picked those 2 games, obviously, those are the 2 best opponents. If you look at the other stats, they may have run for more yards. But if USC doesn't keep the run game in this game, even though they're the more talented team, they can throw the ball. But I'm going to tell you, you better be careful going into Minneapolis.
I agree. You don't want to take USC doesn't want to take this thing down into the 4th quarter, is what we're saying. But I tell you, the one thing, Lincoln Riley's smart. He knows what he's doing. He knows his team. He knows the pulse. All he's got to do is put that Michigan tape on. Right? They're down to Michigan, and they fight back, and it's a debatable onside kick at the end of the game with Minnesota. Yeah. If they recover the kick, they might tie the game up. So the way Minnesota came back, at least he's got film against a team that beat them to watch and say, hey, what, you think?
USC also has to play 4 quarters, guys. They played 4 quarters against LSU. They played 2 against Michigan. They played 2 against Wisconsin. You got to put 60 minutes on the field when you're on the road in conference play. Time for the big stat.